So about 3 years ago, TBARTA applied for a federal grant that was provided in part by the VA administration as well as by the FTA, which is the Federal Transit Administration. And the idea for it was to make access to transportation easier for veterans specifically. So we won the grant, and our, I guess, piece of that, because all kinds of different agencies and entities and jurisdictions won the same grant around the country, was to basically aggregate all of the transportation providers in the region, which most people probably don't think there are very many, but turns out that there are over 250 public, private, medical, special needs providers of transportation, taxi companies across the region, which we define as 7 counties from Sarasota to Citrus. So that was kind of the idea behind it. So it, understandably was a lot of coordination with those folks, as well as getting it into a database and putting it online, as well as we're partnering with the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay to take those phone calls. So you can access the myRIDE database, which is essentially a referral service. So if you don't know what you might need or who you might need to get in contact with to get transportation, whatever that might be, you can call myRIDE, and that phone call is answered by the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay, who does a lot of social service and other kinds of crisis communications with folks. So it all kind of tied together real well, and finally we're, I guess, ready to promote it. So,
and it's not just the bus service in the county that you're in, like not just PSTA or HART, for example. It's the other ways of getting there. Such
Correct.
as taxi, but or
yeah, and I think inherent to that conversation is the point that we really don't have a lot of regional transportation. We don't have a lot of options for folks, and we hear that a lot. Our office gets calls probably 5 or 6 times a day from people who say, I am looking for something that essentially doesn't exist, and that's pretty much core to our mission as an agency. But there really are a lot of providers out there who kind of serve one subset of that niche, and we just want to make that information more readily available. So if you go online and you look at the myRIDE database, each listing has basic information about that provider. So what the costs are, obviously their website, their phone number, things like that. And then which counties they serve. You can filter it by zip code. So hopefully the idea is just that it makes it easier for people to figure out kind of what's available to them, especially with regard to special needs. Like I said, medical transportation or veteran-specific transportation. There really are a lot of small private providers of those kinds of things.
But is it just for veterans, or can someone who needs to get somewhere for a different reason use the service?
Yeah, it was, like I said, partially a VA administration grant, so it is aimed at veterans, but it's obviously open and free to everyone. We're promoting it to the general public for use. Yeah.
What's the website that they can find it on, and the telephone number you mentioned?
Sure. So the website is www.tbarta.com/myRIDE. The myRIDE logo should show up on our homepage, various places, so you should be able to find it pretty easily. And then the phone number is a toll-free 1-844-9-myRIDE.
Looking at the bigger picture of transportation in the region, recently, in the last several years, Hillsborough County and Pinellas County have both rejected, the voters have rejected major transportation overhauls. TBARTA looks at the whole region. What can people look for in transportation in the coming years?
Sure, that's a great question, a great point. We've had a lot of, I would say, conversation and back and forth and political conversations about what to do about transportation in this region. Working in it every day, you can imagine that for us, it's, we know a lot of the ins and outs and the nuances of the conversations, but I think what's pretty much undeniable and what we can't get away from is the fact that people will continue to move here. This is an appealing place to live, a region that a lot of people like for a lot of different reasons. And a lot of our built environment, the roads and the neighborhoods and things like that, other than in the older centers of town, were built around the car. And so they're, more spread out, and they're not quite as walkable, and, where you go shopping and where you live and where you go to work are usually pretty separate. So our point is, yes, the referendum in 2010 in Hillsborough County did not pass, and neither did the referendum this past year in Pinellas. However, the challenge is not going away. Like I said, we're going to continue to grow our traffic problems, and our need for transportation to move people here and there is not going to go away. So how do we fund that? There's been some conversation nationally, on a national level, about the gas tax no longer being a sustainable source of funds, because people are driving more efficient cars and not buying as much in terms of volume of fuel anymore. So the money is not coming in the same way that it used to, and that rate of gas tax has not increased since the early 90s. So those are all things that kind of play into the same picture. And ultimately, I find that it could be something that has a lot to do with demographic changes and generational changes. My parents are in their 60s, and they are very into walking. They live in Ybor City. They, have one car. But ultimately, a lot of people that are my age don't want to have to drive everywhere. They like cars. They might, want to have the option of driving, but the option of biking or walking or taking some kind of transit, whether it's a rail or a bus or a bus rapid transit, is really appealing. So that's oftentimes why we've lost population, especially young college kids, people out of college, to larger metros, cooler metros. So I think we're still moving in that direction. It just means we need to figure out what's the best way for us to fund what we need in this area and what's appealing to most people. So I'm not sure who all has heard, but we do have a new executive director at TBARTA, Ray Shermonte, who comes from the Hillsborough County Metropolitan Planning Organization, as well as the Hillsborough County Planning Commission. And he is, I would say, very much a consensus builder. That is kind of his trademark. So we're really hoping that with his leadership and with our board, which is made up of elected officials as well as governor-appointed individuals, that we're going to kind of turn a new page and turn over a new leaf in terms of moving forward and building some more consensus about what is appropriate for us as a region, whether it's funding on a regional level, funding on the county level, which is kind of the way it's done now. There's just still a lot of options in our repertoire, and we're far from exhausting them.
Great, thanks so much for talking with me today.
Sure, Jonathan, thank you.